My daughter was dying. We needed $40,000 for treatment. Her husband had the money. He just spent $243,000 flying to Bali for a friend's wedding. Private villas, designer tuxes, a Rolex as a party favor. But when I begged him to help her, he looked me in the eye and said, "She's not my problem anymore." That day I stopped asking and I started fighting. He thought she'd die quietly and leave him everything. I made sure he walked away with nothing. My name is Diane Mitchell. I am 58 years old and I have spent most of my life making things work. I am not someone who needs grand things. I clip coupons. I reuse wrapping paper. I scrub my floors by hand. I have one child. Her name is Elena. She turned 28 last April, and if I am being honest, I still see her as that little girl who used to sleep on my chest during thunderstorms. It was early spring when everything started to slip. March, I think. Cold air, but the kind that tricks you into thinking summer's close. Elena had come by that afternoon, bouncing into my kitchen like she always did. Shoes off, coat half on, arms full of dresses. "Help me pick," she said, laying them out on the kitchen table like it was a fashion show. "Ryan's taking me out to a fancy place." I remember smiling and thinking finally, they had been distant lately. He had been traveling more, acting distracted. I thought maybe he was finally putting her first again. She held up a pale green dress. "Too casual?" "No," I said. "It's soft. He likes that color on you." She laughed, turned toward the mirror near the pantry, and tilted her head. "Maybe I just do not want to look boring next to him. He's all hyped about this tux he's getting for some wedding." That caught me. Wedding. Elijah's his best friend from college. Destination wedding somewhere in Bali, I think. Ryan's a groomsman. I folded my arms. "How much is that going to cost?" She shrugged. "He says he's covering everything himself. Flights, hotel, tux, the whole nine. He said it's his big moment with the guys." I made a noise in my throat. She caught it. "Mom, I did not say anything." "You sighed." It is a lot of money for a party." He says it is more than that. Business connections, networking, image. I bit my tongue. I wanted to say your marriage should be more important than image, but I let it go. We picked the green dress. She looked beautiful in it, soft around the edges, her eyes bright again for the first time in weeks. Ryan arrived that evening like a storm in a tailored coat, loud, laughing into his phone, slapping the counter like it owed him money. "Babe," he called to Elena, holding up a thick envelope. "Guess who locked in the jet booking?" I blinked. "Jet private," he said, winking at me like I should be impressed. "I am flying all the groomsmen out in one shot. Cleaner logistics, better vibe." Elena walked out of the bathroom, still adjusting her earrings. "How much is that costing?" he grinned. "Do not worry about it," I asked again, softer. "Ryan, seriously, what are you spending on all this?" He scratched the back of his head. "Fake casual. Whole package is about $243, but it is fine. I moved some things around, liquidated some crypto. All handled." I stopped washing dishes, turned off the tap. $243,000, he shrugged. "It is not like I do that every year, and I will make that back easy. Elijah owes me one. He has got corporate clients lined up for me after this." Elena forced a laugh. "It's not my money, Mom." I smiled politely, but my stomach was twisting. That night after they left, I sat in the living room folding laundry. My phone buzzed. Bank alert shared notification from a joint account Elena still had my name on from years ago. Ryan had wired $50,000 to a luxury event planning firm. I stared at it for a long time. Then I clicked into the details. The breakdown made me nauseous. Villa reservations, fireworks shows, catering from a celebrity chef, custom watches for every groomsman. And my daughter had just told me she had not been sleeping well, that her joints ached, that she had been having chest pains but thought it was stress. I went to bed that night with a pit in my stomach. I wanted to believe this was just a phase, that it would pass. But around 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard my phone vibrate again. A text from Elena. "Mom, I don't know if it's just in my head, but I think something's really wrong." My heart dropped. I dialed her right away, but it rang and rang straight to voicemail. I sat up the rest of the night, waiting, watching the window like she might walk through it. And I knew deep down this was not just a cold. This was the beginning of something I was not ready for. I stood by the reception desk, clutching Elena's insurance card between my fingers. My thumb kept rubbing the edges over and over again like if I stopped I might fall apart. She was sitting behind me, quiet, pale, pretending to scroll through her phone, but her other hand was shaking in her lap. I had noticed it in the car. She said it was nothing, but her lips had turned slightly blue when we stopped at the light, and I had made the decision right then. No more waiting. When the nurse called her name, I could tell Elena didn't want me to come in, but I followed anyway. I was not about to sit in another waiting room while someone else decided what would happen to my child. The doctor's face told me everything before he even spoke. His voice was calm, almost too calm. He used words I had never heard before, terms that sounded like puzzle pieces that did not fit together. Autoimmune systemic inflammation, early organ stress. The treatment would be aggressive, the timeline urgent, and the cost. The cost. Elena sat there nodding like she understood, but I saw the way her fingers curled against her jeans, white-knuckled. The doctor handed us a packet, and I saw the first number circled at the bottom. 40,000. That was just the baseline. More could follow. In the parking lot, she buckled her seatbelt slowly. "He's going to freak," she said. I gripped the steering wheel, staring ahead. Then let him. At dinner that night, I laid the paperwork on the table between us like it was a body. Ryan glanced at it, chewed his steak, then leaned back. "Is this final?" he asked. "That is what they told us," I said. He sighed. "These places always jack up prices. They prey on fear." "She needs this," I said louder than I intended. "This is not optional." "I know," he said, folding the paper. "I will look into it." Look into it. That was not what I needed to hear. I needed him to say he would handle it, that she was the priority. I needed him to be the man he played at being. Elena sat quietly, staring at her food like it might swallow her back. He stood up before dessert. "I have a call." Elena watched him go, then whispered, "I told you he'd freak." I shook my head. He didn't freak. He disconnected. There's a difference. That night I stayed to clean. She offered to help, but I told her to rest. After she went upstairs, I heard him talking in the kitchen. He had not realized I was still there. His voice was low, firm, confident. "No, I am not dropping 40 grand on this. That's a sunken cost. If she pulls through, sure, but I cannot throw money at a maybe." I stood frozen, a dish towel in my hand. I backed up slowly, careful not to let my shoes clack against the tile. I left before he could see me. I drove home with both windows down, even though it was cold enough to make my eyes water. I could not sleep. I paced the kitchen, kept staring at the printout I had taken from the doctor's office. I had always believed people show you who they are when things fall apart. Ryan had just shown me. The next morning I called him. I kept my voice even. "I need you to cover the treatment. At least the first portion. We can work out the rest later. I am still going over our options." "There are no options. She needs this or she is going to get worse." "Do you think I am made of money?" he snapped. "I just dropped 200,000 on Elijah's wedding. I cannot just." I gripped the phone tighter. "You dropped that on a party." "It is not a party, Diane. It is an investment. Clients' future leads. Do you even understand the world I live in?" "Apparently not," I said. There was a long pause. "You can't guilt me into this," he finally said. "I have to protect my future." "Your future is married to my daughter," I said. He hung up. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the pile of unpaid bills I had stacked in a drawer last month. Then I looked at the wedding invitation stuck to my fridge. Elijah and Amanda, cursive in gold foil. The cost of a coffin could fit on one of those embossed cards. And just like that, something inside me shifted. If he could make decisions without my daughter's life in mind, then so could I. I just had to figure out where to start. I called Ryan early that morning before he left for work. My voice came out shaky, even though I had rehearsed what I wanted to say. "Ryan, we need to talk about Elena's treatment." He sounded distracted. "Can this wait? I have a meeting in 20 minutes. "It cannot," I said. "The hospital needs the deposit by Friday." He sighed, the kind of sigh people give when they are inconvenienced, not when someone's life is at stake. "I told you I am working on it." "You are not," I said quietly. "You are pretending you are." He laughed under his breath. You really think I am sitting here doing nothing? I think you are sitting there thinking only about yourself. The silence that followed felt heavier than his words. Then he said, You have no idea what kind of financial strain I am under right now. 200,000 gone already and I have taxes coming up. That was your choice, I snapped. You threw that money away on a party. He groaned. Diane, it was not a party. It was a business event. That wedding got me in front of people who can triple that investment in a year. I closed my eyes. You cannot network your way out of what is happening to her. He did not respond, only exhaled slowly. Look, I love Elena, but I am not bankrupting myself for false hope. You saw the numbers. Those treatments are experimental. The doctor said. There is no guarantee. She has a chance, I said, gripping the phone tighter. That is enough. Not for me, he said and hung up. I stared at the phone long after the line went dead. I wanted to scream but I could not. Instead, I walked to the sink, turned on the tap, and started washing dishes that were already clean. It was something to do with my hands. When I finally stopped, my reflection in the window looked older than I remembered. I whispered to myself, He's not going to help her. Saying it out loud made it real. That evening I went to their house. Elena was curled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her skin pale and her lips cracked. Ryan was at the dining table, laptop open, his suit jacket still on. He did not even look up when I entered. Can we talk? I asked. He gestured without looking. Go ahead. I walked closer, placed the envelope from the hospital on the table between us. That is the estimate. They need the first payment now. He typed something then said, I told you I am reviewing options. You have reviewed enough. The money you spent on those watches could have covered half of it. His eyes flicked up, then sharp and annoyed. You are out of line. I am a mother watching her daughter fade away while her husband sits here pretending spreadsheets matter more than her life. He leaned back. I am trying to be rational. She does not need your rationality, Ryan. She needs your support. He closed the laptop slowly and folded his arms. If you are done lecturing me, I would like to eat. Do not walk away from this conversation, I said. I am not walking away, he said flatly. I am choosing not to argue with someone who refuses to face reality. What reality? That she is dying, he said. And no amount of money is going to stop that. My breath caught, I could not even blink. He said it so calmly, as if he were talking about the weather. Elena's voice broke from behind me, small and trembling. Ryan, stop. He looked over her shoulder and shrugged. I am just being honest. She started crying. I turned to her, but she shook her head, refusing to let me hold her. Mom, please. Not now. Ryan stood, grabbed his car keys and said, I will be back later. The door shut before I could form words. Elena wiped her face. He's scared, she said softly, as if she needed to defend him. I sank beside her on the couch. Fear does not sound like that. She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. I think he's already given up on me. I did not answer because I thought the same thing when she fell asleep. I sat there for a long time, staring at the dim light from the kitchen. Every sound in that house felt loud. The ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, her uneven breathing. I kept thinking about how easily he had said it. She's dying. I checked the clock. It was almost midnight. I should have gone home, but something told me not to. Around 1, I heard his car outside. I peeked through the blinds. He was talking on the phone, pacing the driveway. His voice was low but firm. I told you I can't sink money into this, he said. She's not going to make it, and I need to protect what's mine. My chest tightened. He paused, listening, then added, If she's gone by summer, I'll file and move everything under my name. I backed away from the window. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to hold on to the counter. That night, I sat beside my daughter again, watching her sleep, listening to her shallow breaths. And while he talked outside about protecting his future, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would protect hers even if it meant destroying his. I could not sleep, not even for a minute. The next morning I sat at my kitchen table, phone in hand, scrolling through my text thread with Elena. My thumb hovered over the last message I had sent her the night before. You're not alone. I'll handle this. She had not replied. I knew why. She was trying not to hope and I was trying not to rage. I opened the banking app. I still had access to the joint account Elena had kept from before she married. It was mostly dormant, but Ryan had not bothered to take my name off. And there it was sitting in plain sight. The transfers, not one but several. First, a wire of $58,000 to something labeled Groomsman Logistics, another for $72,000 to a luxury travel group, $30,000 for custom-made watches, another for catering, flights, villas. He had spent more in 1 week on a stranger's wedding than most families make in a year. I printed the statements and stared at them spread across my table. It was obscene. And Elena was upstairs in a fetal position with bags under her eyes and bones pushing out under her skin. Around noon I drove to their house. Ryan was in the backyard, pacing in shorts and sunglasses, holding a smoothie like he was not living in the same world as us. I walked past him without a word and went inside. Elena was in her room, curled up with a heating pad against her side. I kissed her forehead and told her to rest. Then I walked back downstairs. Ryan, I said sharply. He turned, lifted his sunglasses, annoyed. We need to talk. Sure, he said casually, walking toward the patio. What is it now? I held up the printouts. I want to hear it from your mouth. Did you spend $243,000 on Elijah's wedding? He blinked roughly. What does that have to do with anything? I stared at him. You spent that amount of money on someone else's wedding while your wife is sick in the next room. And you will not cover a $40,000 treatment. He scoffed. That was a business decision. I stepped closer. Elena is your wife. Her treatment is not a business decision. He leaned on the patio table, calm as ever. You are looking at this emotionally. I have to think long term. She may not have a long term. My voice cracked. And you are over here playing entrepreneur with her life on the line. He sipped his smoothie. I already told you there are no guarantees. The doctor said it might not even work. Then you try anyway, I said, almost yelling now. You try because that is what people do when they love someone. He smiled bitterly. You know, you always think you are the only one who cares. But you have no idea what I am dealing with. If she dies, I am stuck with debt. You ever think about that? I went quiet. That silence swallowed me. For a moment, I genuinely wondered how someone could say that out loud and not fall apart. You are not stuck with anything, I said slowly. Because you have already made sure of that, haven't you? You are planning for her death like it is a business exit. He gave me a look. You should go. You are upset and you are making assumptions. No, I said, walking toward him. I am finally seeing clearly. You never planned to stay. He planned to benefit. He turned away back to his phone. Believe what you want. I left without another word. I got in my car, hands trembling. I wanted to scream, but I did not. I just stared at the dashboard and whispered to myself, he is already gone. She just does not know it yet. That evening I went home and opened my laptop. I started writing down everything. Dates, amounts, names, conversations. I printed emails Elena had forwarded to me months ago, back when she thought it was just a cold. I started building a file not just for doctors but for lawyers for whatever I would need when the time came. Around 10 I got a notification. Ryan had transferred another $20,000 this time to someone listed as ceremony consultant. The wedding had already happened, so why was money still moving? I stared at the screen. Then I whispered something I had not said aloud in over 30 years. God help me. I will ruin him. And I meant every word. I did not expect him to knock. Ryan always just walked in like he owned the place. But that morning there was a soft, deliberate knock on my door, like he wanted to be someone else. I opened it, and there he was, pressed shirt, shaved face, holding a white envelope in one hand and a fake grin on his mouth. I wanted to drop this off, he said, holding it out to me. I did not take it right away. What is it? The check for Elena's treatment. $10,000 to start. We will sort out the rest once the hospital confirms it's viable. Viable? He said it like she was an experiment. I finally took the envelope and he smiled wider, trying to read my face. I said nothing, just stepped aside and let him walk in. Elena was in the living room, propped up on the couch with her legs under a blanket. Her eyes were sunken, but when she saw him, Something in her face lit up just a little. "You came," she whispered. "Of course," he said, walking over and kissing her forehead. "You scared me, babe." I watched from the hallway. It should have been a beautiful moment, but something in me would not relax. His kindness was too sudden, too polished. "I brought the first payment," he said, sitting beside her. "We going to get through this, okay?" She smiled, small and tired. "I missed you." He touched her hand, and I saw the way she leaned toward him like a child needing shelter. My stomach turned. "Let me get you some tea," I said, just to get out of the room. I needed space to breathe. In the kitchen, I opened a cabinet and leaned against the counter. I should have felt relief. He was helping. He was doing what we begged for. But it did not feel right. The timing, the way he talked, it was all too smooth. Then I heard his voice, low and quick, not realizing I had stepped back toward the hallway. "No, it is just for optics," he was saying. "The check gets me some breathing room. I am still filing, just waiting on her condition to stabilize." My breath caught in my throat. "I will move the rest into the trust by next week," he continued. "Then once it is done, I am out. No mess." He chuckled. "I know what I am doing. She will never see it coming." I backed up before he saw me, heart racing, hands clenched so tight, my nails pressed into my palms. I walked back into the kitchen and gripped the edge of the counter. I could hear the kettle starting to hiss, but I barely noticed. My brain was spinning. He was playing a role. This was all for show. I brought Elena her tea. She smiled up at me like she used to when she was 5 and proud of something simple. "He brought the check," she said softly. "He's trying." I nodded and sat beside her. I wanted to protect that flicker of hope in her eyes. I wanted to believe he was trying. But I could not. Not anymore. That night after Ryan left, I tucked her in. She was asleep before I turned off the light. I sat on the edge of the bed and just looked at her. She had always been so strong, independent, capable, proud, and now here she was, bones and bruises, trusting a man who was already making plans to walk away. I went downstairs and sat on the couch in the dark. I stared at the envelope still on the table. I opened it, unfolded the check and looked at his signature. Even that made my skin crawl now. I picked up my phone, dialed the hospital, and confirmed the account to apply the payment. As I gave them the check details, I heard Ryan's words in my head again. "She will never see it coming." He thought he was clever. He thought no one was paying attention, but I was, and I would not let him win. I hung up and walked to the door, locking it behind me. Then I turned off the lights, checked on Elena one more time and went to bed. But I did not sleep because I knew something he did not. His game had just begun, but so had mine. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked into their house and found Ryan's briefcase left open on the kitchen counter. He never left anything important in plain sight. That man treated his things like secrets, always zipped up, locked down and moved out of reach. But that morning the flap hung open, papers peeking out like they wanted to be seen. I stood there for a moment, frozen, listening for footsteps upstairs. Nothing, just the low hum of the refrigerator and Elena's faint cough from her bedroom. I pulled the folder slowly, careful not to make a sound. My hand shook as I read the first page. Financial statements, transfers, not just small withdrawals, full account wipes, our joint savings, the account Elena had opened right after college. She had added him when they got married. He was supposed to be her safety net, but now it was gone. Every cent. I flipped through the stack and there it was. A document draft with an attorney's letterhead. Petition for divorce, pre-signed, dated for 3 weeks out. My throat went dry. He was waiting for her to die. He was planning his exit with the precision of a man who thought no one would check. No one would notice. No one would dare stop him. I slammed the folder shut just as I heard the front door open. "Diane," he called out. I tucked the folder under my arm and walked calmly toward the living room. "Here," I said, pretending to sip from the mug I had not touched. He walked in, adjusting his tie. "I forgot my wallet." "Right," I said, setting the mug down. "You seem to forget a lot lately." He smirked without looking at me. "Busy brain. You know how it is." I didn't answer. I just watched him, memorize the way he moved, calculated, clean, nothing out of place. He grabbed the wallet from the table and glanced at me. "You okay?" I smiled thinly. "Getting there." He nodded like that meant something and walked out the door. I stood there for several seconds after it shut, then walked back to the counter and laid the folder open again. I read every page twice. By the time Elena woke up, I had already taken pictures of the documents, uploaded them to a drive, and emailed them to myself from a burner account. I did not know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I needed to protect it. She came down the stairs slowly, one hand on the rail. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," she whispered. "My back's aching again." "Let me make you something," I offered, already moving toward the stove. "Where's Ryan?" she asked, sitting down slowly. "He said he had to run an errand," I answered, cracking eggs into a pan. "Said he'd be back tonight." She nodded, staring down at the table. "He's been acting strange." My hands paused. "How do you mean?" "I do not know," she said softly. "It is like he's performing, saying all the right things but not really being here." I stirred the eggs, heart pounding. "Do you trust him?" She was quiet. I turned around. "Elena." Her eyes were glassy. "I want to, but I can't tell what is real anymore." I brought her the plate, sat beside her, and took her hand. "You don't have to carry this alone," I said. She squeezed my fingers. "I don't know how to let go." I thought about the documents, about the zeros, about the signature already scribbled in place, waiting for a moment when she would be too weak to see it coming. I needed time. I needed proof. But most of all, I needed to get ahead of him. That afternoon I called an old friend, someone I had not spoken to in years but trusted like blood. She worked in finance and owed me a favor. I sent her the photos. She called me back less than an hour later. "Diane," she said, "he's not just moving money, he's hiding it. Offshore." I could barely get the words out. "Can you help me trace it?" "I can try," she said. "But you'll need legal power to act on Elena's behalf." I hung up and stared at my reflection in the black screen of the microwave. My eyes looked older than I remembered. My mouth was set in a line I did not recognize. I walked upstairs and knocked on Elena's door. "Come in," she said weakly. I stepped inside and sat on the edge of her bed. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "Something that might save everything." She nodded without asking why. That night, as she signed the durable power of attorney I had printed, my hand still shook, but my voice didn't. And that was when I knew he had just made the worst mistake of his life. I sat across from the attorney, hands folded tightly in my lap. My knees kept bouncing under the desk, but I forced my voice to stay steady. She signed it while she was lucid. "I have it notarized. Everything is in order." He glanced over the document, then looked up at me. "If this stands, you have legal authority to act on her behalf. Medical, financial, and legal decisions, including filing for separation." "I am ready," I said, even though every part of me wanted to be anywhere else but inside a law office filing paperwork to protect my dying daughter from the man she still thought loved her. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I am past sure." It was a quiet ride home. I did not play music. I did not call anyone. I just drove. My fingers clenched the steering wheel as though letting go might send me crashing through everything I had worked for. My chest ached from holding in all the things I wanted to scream. Back at the house, I found Elena curled up in the armchair with a heating pad on her stomach. She looked at me, eyes glazed from pain meds. "How did it go?" she whispered. I sat beside her and brushed her hair back. "It's done," her eyes fluttered. "Good, I trust you." And just like that, she drifted off again like she had not just handed me her life and asked me to hold it steady. That evening, Ryan walked in like nothing had changed, like we were still playing pretend. He gave me a polite nod, then walked straight to Elena. I stood quietly, watching as he leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Hey babe," he said, voice smooth. "I got you soup from that place you like." She smiled weakly. "Thank you," he glanced at me. "Any updates?" I stepped forward. "Yes, a few. I filed a request to remove you from medical decisions effective immediately. You are no longer her proxy." He blinked. "Excuse me." "You heard me," I said. "She gave me power of attorney. You are not in charge of anything anymore." His jaw clenched. "That is not how this works." "It is exactly how this works." He looked at Elena. "You let her do this?" She didn't speak. She looked away. I was protecting you, he said. From rash decisions. From spending your money, I interrupted. From being held accountable, from pretending you cared. He took a step toward me, his face red. You do not get to freeze me out of my own wife's care. I already did. He turned back to Elena, voice raised now. Tell her to stop. This is insane. She whispered without lifting her head. It is what I want. That silenced him. I watched his face shift, shock first, then something colder. He straightened his shoulders like he was slipping back into that polished version of himself. You think this is over? He said. No, I replied. But you are. The next morning, I handled the emergency legal separation paperwork. I stood in front of the court clerk, reciting the words I had memorized in my head all night. Abandonment, financial negligence, emotional distress. I signed every line without hesitating. When I returned home, Ryan was waiting in the driveway, leaning against his car. I walked right past him. You are making a mistake, he called after me. I turned. So were you when you chose a groomsman's wedding over your wife's life. His mouth opened then closed. He got in his car and drove off. I called the hospital next. I told them only I had authority to speak for Elena now. No more updates to Ryan. No access, no input. They confirmed everything was noted. I thanked them and hung up. That evening he returned to the hospital anyway, showed up like he had every right. But this time security stopped him at the door. She is my wife, he said. Not anymore, I told him, stepping between him and the glass doors. You can't do this. I already have. He stared at me and I stared right back. Something in him shifted then. Not fear, just the dawning realization that I was not going to back down. He took a slow step back. You're not going to win. I smiled, not kindly. I do not need to win. I just need to make sure you lose. And as the automatic doors slid shut between us, I knew exactly what had changed. The control was no longer his. It was mine. The air in the hospital lobby felt heavier that morning, like even the walls were holding their breath. I sat in the corner, gripping a folder in my lap. Inside it was everything. Proof of the money Ryan had funneled out, the timeline of his calls, even the name of the divorce attorney he had contacted weeks before Elena collapsed. I had not told her yet. She was too weak now, too far into the treatments that were barely holding her together. But today was not about her. Today was for him. He walked in just before 9 wearing that smug, pressed suit like it was armor. He glanced around and spotted me immediately. You called me here. What's going on? He said, walking toward me like he was still in charge of something. I stood. We need to talk privately, I said. He glanced around. Talk about what? You already made your point. You froze me out. Got the hospital to block me, I said. Privately, I cut in. This is not a conversation you want others to hear. He hesitated, then followed me into a side hallway near the vending machines. No nurses around, just silence and the hum of machines. I opened the folder and handed him a copy of the bank transfer logs. You want to explain this? He skimmed the pages and scoffed. I moved some money. That's not a crime. You drained accounts that had Elena's name on them. You used her illness as cover to hide funds. That is a serious accusation. I have more, I said, flipping to the next sheet. Your lawyer's email. Your intent to file for divorce once her health declines. The offshore transfer. It is all here, Ryan. He folded his arms. You dug into my private life? I protected my daughter. Something you were supposed to do. His tone shifted. You think this will stick in court? She's dying. You think a judge will care what a grieving husband did with his finances? I stepped closer, keeping my voice low. Do not mistake my silence for weakness. Elena gave me legal authority, and I have already shared this file with my attorney. If she passes, everything goes public. Your finances, your fraud, your manipulation. Every call you made is logged. Every penny you moved is documented. He stared at me, jaw tight. You are bluffing. I am not. And I am not asking you to admit guilt. I am telling you to walk away quietly. No claims to insurance. No arguments over assets. You disappear. Or I make sure you do. For the first time he blinked like he was unsure. I stepped back. You fooled her. But you never fooled me. He looked at the folder again, then at me. She does not know, does she? No, I said. And she never will, because I am not giving you another chance to hurt her. He opened his mouth, but then I saw it. His shoulders dropped just slightly. The corner of his mouth twitched. That mask of control he wore so well cracked for half a second. Do what you want, he muttered, turning to walk away. But you just made an enemy. I followed him to the exit. I do not need you to be my friend. I just needed you gone. He paused at the door, looked over his shoulder and said, You think she will thank you for this? For hiding it from her? She will thank me for saving her from someone who was never truly there. He left without another word. I returned upstairs, heart pounding in my ears. Elena was asleep when I entered the room. Her hand lay gently on the blanket, pale and still. I sat beside her and held it, letting the silence wrap around us. After a while, her eyes fluttered open. Was that Ryan? No, I whispered. Just someone I used to know. She looked at me, searching my face for something. Then so softly I barely heard it, she said, I feel lighter. I brushed her hair back. Good. She drifted off again, but my mind was still spinning because as I tucked the folder back into my bag, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from my lawyer. We need to talk. He's filing an injunction. And I knew the fight was not over yet. The nurse didn't have to say anything. I saw it in her eyes the moment I walked into the room. Elena's chest had stopped rising. The faint beeping was gone. Everything was still. I walked to her slowly, like if I moved too quickly, it would break the moment and she'd vanish. Her hand was cold when I touched it, and I held it tighter. Anyway, I leaned down and kissed her forehead, whispering the same thing I had whispered to her the day she was born. I'm here. Only this time I was saying goodbye. The hospital room went quiet around me, but inside something was screaming. Not loud, not chaotic, just that low, aching kind of scream that lives behind your ribs when the world finally stops pretending things will be okay. I stayed with her until the staff came in. I signed the papers. I confirmed the time of death. I answered the questions with a voice that didn't sound like mine. When they asked who should handle the arrangements, I said, Me. And I meant it. There was no one else who deserved to carry her into the next chapter, but the woman who had carried her into this one. I went home that night and opened the folder, the one with the financial records, the attorney letters, the screenshots. I added a final page to it, her obituary. I printed it myself. No embellishments, just the truth of who she was. The funeral was small, just the people who mattered. Her childhood friends, her nurses, my sister. I had asked them not to share the time with Ryan, but he came anyway. He always did love showing up where he was no longer welcome. He wore the same dark suit he used for weddings, with a black tie he probably borrowed from someone. He stood by the doors of the church like he belonged there. I stepped outside before the service started. He tried to walk past me. I held up a hand. You're not coming in. He blinked. What? You heard me. He looked around like there was someone to appeal to. She was my wife. She was your responsibility, I said, and you failed her. He stepped forward. You don't get to shut me out of this. I looked him straight in the eye. She changed her will. You get nothing. No inheritance, no life insurance, no say in her burial. Legally, you're not family anymore. His face paled. You're bluffing. She signed it weeks ago before she got too sick. The lawyer filed everything. Your injunction? Rejected. I spoke with the judge myself. He swallowed. And for the first time he didn't speak. I turned and walked back inside, leaving him there at the doors, staring after me with nothing but silence. The service went on without him. I stood at the front and read the words she had written in her final week, the ones she had asked me to share. She talked about grace, about pain, about choosing peace over anger. But when I looked at the crowd and saw people nodding through tears, I knew none of them knew the full story, and they didn't need to. That was between me and him and her. After the burial, I went home and packed the last of her things. Her scarves, her favorite books, the blanket she always curled up under when she was cold. I folded each piece slowly, placing them in a box I labeled Keep. Everything else I gave away. When I walked into the kitchen, there was a letter on the counter. My attorney had dropped it off while I was gone. It confirmed the court's decision. Full enforcement of the revised will, Permanent dismissal of Ryan's injunction. No appeals granted. I held the letter and sank into the kitchen chair. Not to cry, not to collapse, just to breathe. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was holding everything together with string and duct tape. That night, I sat by the window and watched the wind pull at the trees. I whispered her name once just to hear it, just to remember what it sounded like in my own voice. She was gone, but so was he. And now all that was left was me and the quiet, steady promise I had made to her. He would never take another thing from us. Not our peace, not our memories, not even the grief. I kept that promise, and I always will.